Would you like to hear my story? All right, back in the U.S., I was a lawyer. That's why I call myself a reformed lawyer. And there are a lot of people who are practicing law who are disenchanted. And some of them want to leave the profession, but very few do. Because they're slaves to the profession. They make too much money to give it up. They can't just find another job and maintain that lifestyle. So even though they're miserable, they keep at it. I was able to leave law. And in that sense, I consider myself a successful lawyer. You can laugh at that. Or the next one, that's okay. Yeah, I was able to leave the law. And people ask me, why did you leave law to become a speaker, a trainer, a lecturer? Because when people think of law, they think of the 3 Ps. High pay, high power, high prestige. Why give that up to do something else? And so they ask me. And so I tell the story. I was sitting in my law office in Miami one day, and a young guy, I guess he was young, he was about 40. Is that young? I hope so. Young, well-dressed, comes into my office and he says, "David, I need you to sue my parents." Now, I know in Asia, suing your parents is unthinkable. And even in the U.S., it's not something we just do. So I was taken aback by this. And I said, "Ed, why do you want me to sue your parents?" And he explained that his grandfather had passed away a couple years ago, left him a lot of money, and his parents refused to give him a cent. And the only way he would get it is if he sued them. And I thought, well, let me look at this, and I see that he might have a case, but I can't believe this is the best approach. And I know that there are always 2 sides to every story. So let me call the parents and find out from them what they think. So I call his father, and I say, "Mr. Cooper, your son Ed was in my office this morning. He's a little concerned about the way you and your wife are administering his late grandfather's estate. Is there anything you'd like to share with me?" And he said, David, let me tell you something about my boy Eddie. Eddie is a remarkable judge of people. He can read you like a book, size you up, know exactly which buttons to push. But did you know he has a learning disability? He can't hold a job. He can't make decisions. He can barely take care of himself. And he certainly can't manage money. And if you're anything like any of his other lawyers, you're going to disappear as soon as you go through his retainer. So now I'm getting a little concerned. And so I invite the parents into my office, and I invite Eddie, and we sit down and we have a talk. And over the next 5 or 6 weeks, we met once a week for about an hour each time, and we talked. And I'd like to tell you that at the end of this period, everything was back to normal. But I can't. However, during this process, there were some tears, there were some group hugs, and at the end of this period, Eddie was going back to his parents' house once a week for dinner, just like in the good old days. And I felt pretty good about that. I felt satisfaction that I was able to help reunite this dysfunctional family and return them to some semblance of normalcy. And so I thought about it, and I realized that most lawyers would have gone ahead and sued the parents. And I thought a little bit more, and I thought, you know what? The Florida bar gave me a license to practice law. I'm a legal counselor. I'm not a family counselor. The bar wants me to file zoning applications, draft contracts, and sue people. They don't want me helping this poor family. And so I thought, there's got to be a better way to use my talents. There's got to be something else I can do to make a difference. So I left law, I started lecturing, got into training, got into speaking, And now I have the chance to make a difference to lots and lots of people. And I feel a lot more satisfaction. Thank you. Now, why do I tell that story? Because there are a lot of stories I can tell. After a few people asked me, I realized that they're not asking me why I switched careers because they're curious. They're asking because they're suspicious. They're skeptical. They think I must have done something wrong. Maybe he got disbarred. And you read stories about this in the newspaper. Some lawyer disappears with millions of dollars of client money. Maybe that's what he did, and he had to come to hide in Singapore. And so I realize people are thinking this. Now that I know they're thinking this, there are three things I can do. The first thing, I can just ignore it, not mention it, and hope they don't think about it. But if I know that at least some of them, and probably a lot of them, are thinking about it, and I don't do anything about it, that's not too smart, is it? The second thing I can do is anticipate it. Launch a preemptive attack. Nip it in the bud. I can say something like, well, I just wanted to try something different. I didn't get disbarred or anything. And then they're thinking, wait a minute, I didn't ask if he got disbarred. Why is he so defensive? Seems a little sensitive about this issue. I think he got disbarred. And that doesn't work very well either, does it? So the third thing is to tell them a story, and I tell them that story. Now, when I tell that story, I change their perception 180 degrees. They start out thinking, oh, he's probably disbarred, I don't trust this guy. And then they turn around and they think, hey, this guy sounds like he's really nice. He cares. He wants to help people. Maybe he's too nice to be a lawyer. Now, that's exactly what I want people to think when I meet them. I position myself the way I want them to perceive me.